Hello and welcome to Pickleball Therapy, the podcast dedicated to your pickleball improvement. It's the podcast with you in mind. My name is Tony Roy. I am your podcast host as well as a pickleball professional dedicated to helping you play the best pickleball you've ever played if that's what you want to do. This week's episode, we're going to be talking about using the long lens to check ourselves. It's a really important kind of a thing as we move through our pickleball journey to make sure we're using that long lens instead of the short lens to check ourselves and our progress. Although during the riff, I am going to switch it to the short lens because there's a place for the short lens and a place for the long lens. But the long lens is really what's going to help you, big picture, understand where you are along your path and help you avoid potential frustrations as you are moving forward. Because sometimes you use the short lens, and the short lens is not going to be the best to help us you move forward with our, not just move forward, but to understand where we are along our journey. So that's going to be this week's podcast. As we move into the podcast, I wanted to extend a warm welcome to our September Pickleball System class. There's a few hundreds of you who decided to trust CJ and I with your pickleball coaching. As we've mentioned this before, I'm going to repeat it. We take this very seriously, our role in your journey. We spend countless hours putting this information together for you and providing the coaching that we know will give you the results that you're looking for in your game. Not just because we know it, just kind of know it. We know it because our students before you have told us how well it's worked for them, and the stories keep on coming in. So welcome to the September class, and make sure you're using that long lens as you work through the materials in your course. One other thing I wanted to do is last week I did a therapist check-in. I'm doing it again in case you missed last week's episode. Let us know how you're doing as a therapist. Send us an email at therapy@betterpickleball.com and let us know how you're doing as a pickleball therapist. If you're interested in becoming a pickleball therapist, send me an email to the same address, therapy@betterpickleball.com. Put in therapist in the subject line and make sure that it gets my attention, and I'll get you the materials to see if there's something you want to commit to. It's a really good way to continue to commit to your mental growth and your development as a pickleball player, and more importantly, as a person. So that's the check-in. And let's see, I guess we're all there. All right. So word of the week this week is growth. As pickleball players and as human beings, I would suggest that I think it's always good to think about growing, right? And it can be in any area of life. Obviously, this is a pickleball podcast, so we focus in here on pickleball. But the concepts that we talk about during this podcast extend well beyond pickleball. Understanding that pickleball is an important part of our lives, but it is not everything in our lives. I remember from last week's podcast, we talked about everything matters and nothing matters. And you can apply that to anything else in life as well, right? It has broad application. So when we think about ourselves as transitory beings on this planet for a certain amount of time, at least, on this planet, if you believe in going somewhere afterwards and things like that, that's perfectly fine. But right now, what we're dealing with is what we're doing here on this planet. And so, the idea of growing and learning and being more, being curious about things, makes our time here that much more enjoyable, but also that much more fulfilling, right? It feels good when you learn something new or when you grow in an area. And so, as relates specifically to pickleball, it is natural to want to know more, to want to grow, to want to continue to advance in our game. And the way that we look at that oftentimes, or the way we measure it oftentimes, is through the wins, right? How many games did I win today versus how many games did I win yesterday? And how many games, will I win tomorrow? And the win-loss metric that we've talked about before on this podcast a few times is a dangerous one. It's a dangerous one because it doesn't really, standing alone, it doesn't really tell you anything about your performance. And also, because if you're playing at level And at level means that you're playing basically your clone, essentially, right? So at level is you're playing as close as possible to the same exact level that you are. When you're playing at level, in this the way we use that term, you should have an equal chance of winning and losing. So if you're using the win-loss as your, that column in your book, as your as your feedback for how am I doing as a pickleball player, it's a rough, right? Because in a hypothetical world, you would always be at 50%. 50%, 50%, 50% doesn't tell you anything about your growth as a pickleball player. And so the word of the week and the long lens we're gonna work into is a way of looking at yourself and your pickleball through a different type of metric, a different type of lens, which is, are you growing as a pickleball player? And growing as a pickleball player means a lot more than just, did you win today or did you lose today when you went out to play? So let's dive into a little more. So let's talk first about the limitation that you have when you're the one evaluating yourself. And there's this saying about, you can't really see what's going on when you're inside the barrel, so to speak. So picture yourself literally inside a barrel. You can't really see what's happening to you, right? Because you're inside the barrel. Now, everybody else can see what's happening, but you can't see what's happening to yourself. Now, you can also see what's happening to others because you're not inside their barrel, but you can't see what's happening inside your barrel. And so keep that in mind whenever you're thinking about yourself and your pickleball, that you are limited, right? You have certain limitations in terms of being able to objectively view yourself because you're inside the barrel. The long lens approach allows you to view yourself from outside the barrel. And let me define the long lens while we're on it. So the long lens is, think about it like a telephoto or a zoom lens, telephoto zoom lens on a camera, where you can see things from far away and you can also see, a wide angle of a situation. It lets you place yourself within a bigger context. Then a short lens would be like, all I can see is what's, 2 feet in front of me, right in front of my nose. So what we want to do is, we want to start moving towards the long lens. As you do that, I happened upon an interview with the Mamba, Kobe Bryant. He's one of the greatest basketball players in the history of basketball. I think he's consistently ranked in the top 10 by folks who know basketball, but he was always a great competitor in the sport, always was known for his dedication to his growth as a basketball player. And what he said in this interview was, struck home. It resonated with me. And what he said that doubt was silly. Like, having doubt just didn't make sense to him. And he put it like this. He says, what you do is you put in the work, is what he says. So you put in the work, you work on your game. Then when it comes to to game time, right, to the actual game, you do the best you can out there. And sometimes you're going to win, sometimes you're going to lose. Having doubt about it doesn't really change anything. And what I really liked that tied it all together was, he said, sometimes you win the game, but then you have to get up the next day and do it all over again, right? So it's not like you win the game and everything's over. You got to do it again. And, you win, it's great, got to get up, do it again. You lose, it sucks, quoting Kobe, it sucks, but but you still have to get up the next day and do it again. So whether you win or lose, you're in the same boat, if you will, because as long as you continue to want to engage in this activity, then you'll always be doing it again. And so embracing the journey, embracing the activity itself, and doing the best you can, right? It's not that you're just going to do it and not worry about it. That's the balancing act that we talked about last week. What he's talking about is, give your best, but don't be driven by the results. Be driven by the process, is what he's saying between the lines. That's how we built the pickleball system. Everything's about process, and everything that we teach is about process, including these podcasts. I think Kobe's words are helpful to us in terms of understanding that we're going to give our best, doubting ourselves, which is a seed that gets planted in our mind and can grow into, it can lead us bad places. Really doesn't make any sense when you look at it through the long lens, look at a big picture. And so go out there, do your best, whether you win or lose. Understand there's always going to be another game to play, and hopefully another game after that, and so on, for the rest of our pickleball lives, as long as we want to play. So, Kobe, thanks for those words. Rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. All right, let's move on to another concept that I think will help you think about progress. And this is from our friend DJ Howard. He was on the summit a couple of years ago, and he shared this story with us, or this way of thinking about it. And the way to think about it is, in terms of our progress as players, is, imagine yourself, you have this big rock, okay, and you have a regular size hammer. So you have like a house hammer, and so you have this big rock, and you're pounding the rock every day with your hammer, right? That's doing the work. That's like what Kobe called doing the work. And you're putting in the work, and you look at the rock, and it's still a huge rock. And you're like, I'm not even making a dent in this thing, with this hammer. So you're hitting the rock, and you're hitting the rock, and you're hitting the rock, but you keep putting in the work. You keep, trusting the process. You keep doing the thing. What happens is, eventually, the rock shatters. Now, you don't recognize as you're going through it, right? You can't see the little mini cracks that are happening on the inside of the rock, the change in the structure of the rock that you are imparting to it by hitting it with the hammer again and again and again and again and again, until one day the rock simply breaks apart. And a lot of times in our journeys, we lose sight of, or not lose sight, we don't have perspective, right? We can't see that the rock is changing. It just looks like a big lump of rock, and we're like, man, the same place I was, 2 months ago or 3 months ago or 6 months ago, and the rock hasn't changed. But what happens is, eventually the rock breaks apart, and you start, and then you can see all the change in your game, because you've reached that threshold between, like when the rock actually cracks, where you can see it. The change is happening, right? Whether you can see it or not, that rock is cracking. Whether you see it or not, it's cracking. The thing is, you can't see it until you actually see the rock break apart. And same thing happens in our game. So thanks, DJ, for that. I would say rest in peace, because DJ is still around. So, all right, let's talk about, how we use the long lens. What can we do? So there's a few different things that you can do to try and use this long lens, or bring the long lens to bear in your pickleball journey. One thing is to understand, give yourself the right perspective, right, when you're thinking about pickleball. Understand that your pickleball journey is not about quick fixes. It's not about, magical solutions. I think it was last week as well, we talked about the pickleball unicorn not really being, this magical solution thing. So there's not something that's going to happen to you that's going to be like one thing, and all of a sudden, you're playing half a level or a level higher. There's actually some marketing materials out there that talk about, like guaranteed raise in half a level or something like that. It's just not realistic. And what happens is then you get frustrated because you didn't increase half a level. So it must be something wrong with you. So part of the long lens is having a proper perspective to your game, proper set of expectations in terms of how this works, how pickleball improvement will work. And you have to understand that it requires work, and not just requires work, it is a process that takes some time. Another thing that you can do to have that long lens approach is to embrace the growth journey itself. And by that, you're not looking just for those glimpses of I won against this team, and so that's great, which it's fine. It's fine to have that feeling, but not just that, right? Enjoy the other parts of the process as well. Meaning, when you're out there and you spend 20 minutes against the wall hitting a ball, or you spend 10 minutes, hitting extra shots with someone at the game that you're at before the game starts, as an example, or afterwards. Celebrate that, right? And grab the bull by the horns, as they say, and enjoy that part of the process as much as you do when you have that victory that you're like, ooh, I haven't done that before. Let me savor that win. Savor the steps you take along the way will really help you. And then the other thing to do with the long lens is try and avoid comparing yourself to yesterday. Meaning, don't just say today I feel like I played the same as yesterday, or maybe played worse than yesterday. compare yourself to 6 months ago, or compare yourself to 2 years ago. I've been playing since 2015, and I can tell you that when I think back to the games that I used to play 8 years ago, using that long of a lens, I will never be worried about my improvement. Now, you modulate that, right? I'm not going to just say, well, I'm improved from 8 years ago to now, but that's an example of the longest lens. I can look at myself between now and say like 8 months ago, and I know that I've improved. I know I have shots in my game now that are more reliable, certain shots that are more reliable than they were 8 months ago. So I see that improvement. So apply a lens that gives you a big enough perspective, and stay away from the really short lens. Like I said, well, last week I played great, and this week I'm not playing great. That's perfectly normal. That's a normal ebb and flow of the game. And I'll give you an analogy, metaphors. If you look at like the stock market, when you look at the stock market on a day in and day out basis, it's up and down, up, down, down, up, down, 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 right? But if you look at it over like a 10-year window, it's trending upward. That's what you want to do with a long lens. You want to look at your game over, 6 months, 1 year, those kind of chunks, and determine how your game is progressing over that time frame, as opposed to how did I do last week compared to how did I do this week. As we move into the riff, actually, I wanted to share with you all the story. So I did a video last week for the Into Pickle channel, and it was a quick shoe video. It was really just answering questions that we've been getting, which is, what's the best pickleball shoe? And so I did it that way. And I said, at the beginning of the video, I literally said, in this video, I'm going to share with you the shoe that I wear. So I shared the shoe, which is Tyrol. If you listen to the podcast, you know that. And I said it was a pickleball shoe designed by a company devoted to pickleball shoes only and nothing else. Got some good feedback, and also got some pushback. And the pushback was that I didn't sufficiently explain the why it's a pickleball shoe. So I'm going to prepare that video, but I thought it was interesting that it was just a quick answer question, it was a quick answer video, because some players simply want to know the answer, they don't want to get into the weeds on, everything having to do with shoes. That said, I understand that some players want that, so we're going to prepare that video. But I'm going to tell you this, Tyrol is the only shoe designed by a company that only does pickleball shoes. It's a fact. And I'll go ahead and give you a sneak peek into what the difference in the shoe is. The difference in the Tyrol shoe has to do with the way the heel part of the shoe is constructed in the midsole of the shoe. It cradles the heel, pulls it back some. It's like recessed a bit. And the reason for that is because the motion of our sport is different than other sports. We have our lateral movement is different than tennis lateral movement. It's much more stop and start, small little steps. Tennis is longer strides laterally. And so Kevin and his team designed the shoe specifically to address the kinetic movement in pickleball, including the heel design. And it's the only shoe, again, specifically designed for that purpose. So if you want to check out Tyrol, use our code BP10, Better Pickleball, so BP10 at checkout. You'll save some money and support our podcast. All right, let's talk about the riff and checking yourself with the short lens. There is a place for the short lens. So it's not like you apply the long lens and you never look through the short lens. You should look through the short lens. There's things, for example, you can do on the court, like if you miss a certain shot, ask yourself, where am I standing? Or did I rush through the shot? There's things you can do in the short term to help improve your play. And plus, it's part of the process, right? Part of your interaction with the sport using the short lens. The one I wanted to focus on was checking yourself and your body. And this is from a personal experience of mine yesterday. Played pickleball in the morning with some friends here locally, and played for a couple hours. And then I went to do some heavy-duty yard work that I had started the day before, the 2 days before, I can't remember now. But it was, it's ripping bamboo out of the ground with a hacksaw or a sawzall, and it's heavy-duty stuff. And so I did it for about an hour and a half after the pickleball, and I was beat. I mean, my body was saying, listen, you got to stop this nonsense. I'm not 20 anymore, unfortunately. Yeah, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. From a wisdom standpoint, fortunately, I guess. But I stopped. And I think what happens sometimes as pickleball players is we don't listen to our bodies enough when we're out there. And I'm going to give you a couple suggestions in this area. One is when you get to the pickleball courts, avoid the pressure of let's start now if you're not ready to start. If you need to warm your body up before you start. In other words, like get out there, do a little bit of a warm up, tell everybody to chill out, or they can hit the ball with each other and drill, whatever they got to do. Don't get pressured into putting your body into a situation where you have a higher chance of injury because your body's not ready. And also do the same on the back end. What I mean by that is towards the end of your session. Listen to your body. If your body is saying, this is not good for me to go out there and play another game, then respectfully say, I just don't have it right now. I can't play another game. Because what we're trying, obviously we want to enjoy ourselves during that day, but we also want to have more days to play and enjoy other days to play. And being injured is surefire way not to be able to play for an extended period of time, and not just not be able to play pickleball, not be able to get around your day and your life and do your thing. So apply the short lens or listen to that short lens of yours when your body's telling you, hey, I need to get ready, and B, when I'm done. Like I was yesterday with that bamboo was killing me. So anyway, so that's this week's podcast. Long lens, short lens. Apply both to your journey as appropriate, and you'll get the most out of it. As always, rate and review the podcast if you please. And if you enjoyed the podcast, share it with your friends. If you enjoyed the podcast, pretty confident they will too. For those of you who are inside the pickleball system for our September course, look forward to seeing you inside class. And for everybody else and our September members, system members, have a great week, and I'll see you next time.